Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mel V, and this is Conscious Consumer Network coming to you live on this Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. GMT. And this is our scheduled broadcast, Stop South African Genocide. And thank you very much to all you wonderful people out there who have tuned in from wherever in the world you may be tuning in. I just want to say, first off, a big hello to my co-host, Karin Smith, and of course, hello to Robert, who has joined us at the last minute this evening, and thank you very much for coming in to speak to us.
Hi, everybody, and welcome, Robert. And yes, as Mel says, thank you so very, very much. Our scheduled guest for tonight came down with the flu and has absolutely no voice. So he will be on next week, but Robert has very kindly jumped in at the last second, so we're able to provide you with the show today. Robert, thank you. And if you would just give a little story of who you are, where you come from, because obviously we haven't put up promo for you, and it would be nice to know, for our viewers, to know who you are.
My name is Robert Engels. I'm Namibian born. I've been in South Africa now for about 27 years. I'm a corporate commercial legal consultant here. Most of my experience is made up from big corporates, multinationals in the engineering and manufacturing industry, and that is basically in a nutshell what I am and what I do. I work very closely in the commercial sector of business in South Africa.
Thanks so much, Robert. So tonight we are going to discuss the economic suicide of a once great and prosperous country. From my point of view, we were in financial trouble in South Africa before the end of apartheid due to many factors, but mostly I would think sanctions. But we were still doing extremely well. We had great inventors, we had great doctors, we had great financial geniuses, and we were doing very, very well. Then came 1994, and Nelson Mandela and his group took over South Africa, and everything kind of flew out the window from there. As I see it, the economy, the infrastructure, etc., are only self-sustaining for so long, and then they start falling apart. So it took a while for the consequences of 1994 to become apparent to us. But today, South Africa, all people in South Africa are paying a very, very huge economic price for the ANC's takeover of South Africa. Am I correct, Robert? Have we lost you, Robert?
Yes, you are indeed correct.
Oh dear, we're unable to hear you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, that's better. There we go. We good. Okay.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, well, the old apartheid government, it was still a socialist government because it was modeled on the National Socialist model. What we're seeing now is just a continuation of the old National Socialist model, except now it's just done with the racial prejudice towards the majority, which however, it's what we call the cappuccino effect right now. It's where you've got this massive black layer at the bottom, you've got a thin cream layer at the top, and then there's chocolate sprinkles on top of it. There are very select few black people actually prospering actually in South Africa right now because of this. And it's the political elite, and it's cronyism all over the show. And I mean, if you look at the Zuma family and their friends and family, I mean, becoming even millionaires, billionaires overnight. through government contracts, through government intervention in certain things. And yeah, so the whites are disenfranchised, the majority of the blacks are disenfranchised because of the political elite, and they, well, to call a spade a spade, because of the political elite theft of this country and this country's resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, I don't see that it's going to make a difference to exchange Zuma for somebody else, because as long as you have a place on that gravy train, you are doing well. So to exchange Zuma, which is the call at the moment, get rid of Zuma, get rid of Zuma, it's not going to change anything, is it?
What we're seeing right now is that should he be replaced, he's got enough cronies in place and enough support in place that whoever takes over will make sure that he's not prosecuted and make sure that he will still be benefiting from whoever is taking over from him, whether it be can't remember the lady's name right now.
And Nkosazana Dlamini.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Or Cyril Ramaphosa. All of them are still in his back pocket. All of them support him, which means he will still be free from prosecution, and most likely before when his tenure ends, he's going to leave for Dubai, which is the rumor right now. And we have no extradition agreement with Dubai.
Yeah, I've seen the palace that apparently was bought in his name in Dubai, just waiting for him. So their money is offshore. They're safe from any prosecution. They've got their futures planned, and they will still benefit from whatever small amounts of capital are left in South Africa when they're finished with their depredations of the economy.
Yes, exactly. Because right now, the biggest problem we have is that, and I don't know if it's what we call the bell potting effect.
Yes, yes.
Whereas bell potting invented the term white monopoly capital.
Yeah.
Whereas the whites are blamed for the economic trace, for the fact that white people own the majority of the JSE listed shares, which is false. So the whites own most of the country, which is also blatantly false, because most of the farmable land in South Africa belongs to the government, and well, government's willing to share. Government's not willing. So, well, look, we're willing to cut off this much to advantaged individuals. We'd rather you just take the white farms, and there's a white paper in now. We're hoping that the Constitutional Court will actually stop it. But we're not really hopeful right now, because the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court is still a political appointee.
So this expropriation without compensation is more than likely going to happen.
Yes, actually, because there is a provision in the Constitution for it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember it's in verse right now, but it is that if it's in public interest, appropriation may take place. And if we're looking at a new group called Black First, Land First, they're getting very vocal. They're getting very vocal, very militant about the issue. And from rumors we've heard, and from what they're saying, on the 31st of November, they will start with large-scale land grabs all across South Africa.
So you put those together with the EFF, who's already saying you can't steal from whites, etc. It's our land. Whites are visitors here. You are going to have one incredible mess should that happen. And I don't see anything standing in the way of it happening.
There's an article out, it's about 2 or 3 weeks old, that the army is so underfunded and so understaffed, they will not be able to protect its citizens should there actually be an armed intervention, or should there be attack on South African sovereignty. Our police are underfunded, our police are understaffed. I mean, the vehicles are in such a state of disrepair. We've had instances where people complained or phoned in complaints about robberies or
We're losing you again.
to come and investigate. And if they do come to take, I'm sorry, it seems like there's a problem with my internet. My bandwidth is, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. But it's we are so used to it from South Africa, Robert. Don't worry about it. We just go on. It's one of those things. It's a South African thing. We just handle it and move on.
Exactly. Well, this is Africa.
Yeah, what you going to do about it?
Not much.
Yes, the police have often told people we have no petrol for our vehicles, so we can't come and investigate your complaints, and etc. etc. So it's an entire disaster. And I read today that not only that, but the hospitals are now they've been going downhill for a long time. There have been stories for years now about underfunding for the hospitals, lack of drugs, lack of sheets, lack of food, lack of everything. But there was actually an article that came out this morning saying that doctors can't even do their internship anymore. And you know that they have to go and do a certain amount of time in a provincial hospital out in the sticks somewhere once they qualify before they can go and work anywhere else. Now, even that they can't do because they can't be paid. So the money has gone, and it's not for lack of taxes. It's not for lack of riches in the country. It is simply being stolen from the top to the bottom. Everybody has got their fingers in the cookie jar. And now look at the country. No hospitals, no police, no army. And the answer to this is white monopoly capital. If they took every penny from every single white in South Africa and every last centimeter of land from them, it wouldn't do a damn thing for the hordes and hordes of them standing there asking, where is mine?
Yes, exactly. Well, also keeping in mind that we are extremely overtaxed. I mean, any individual that earns, for example, less than or more than $100,000 a year is taxed at 49%. Then we've got road accident fund. We've got road accident fund levies. We've got petrol fund levies. We pay toll gates. So from what we can see is we don't know where the money is going to. I mean, the road accident fund gets in excess of 500 million rand every quarter, and it's saying it is bankrupt. How do you bankrupt something that earns 500 million rand per quarter? And it's not in payouts, it's because they've got this massive employees they have to pay. They get massive salaries. And this same with Eskom. And we actually found out what the reason was for the whole Eskom debacle when they took over the utilities completely in roughly about 2004. That was saved up. And that amount was saved up for maintenance in the future. And they took it and paid out massive bonuses to everybody. Well, there was none left. And all of a sudden, electricity prices through the roof. Everybody went over to prepaid meters, which is another disaster.
Yeah.
And we don't understand where the money is going. We're already taxed to death. We've got 14% value added tax added onto everything. So where's the money going? And the other thing is that what we also need to keep in mind is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Gupta family.
Yes.
Which have very recently become prominent.
We are very lucky that the lady in London who first started investigating the Guptas will be on our show in 2 weeks' time. And she started at the very beginning, before anybody was even speaking about the Guptas. She was on about Bill Pottinger and on about the Guptas and on about what was going on. And everybody was laughing at her. Well, every last thing she said, plus a lot she hadn't dreamed of, has come to light. So we're also very lucky that she will be on in 2 weeks' time, and we'll discuss this whole thing from beginning to end. Yes,
Well, then I'd also encourage you to read the state. No, I would encourage you also to read the state capture report. It's a fairly hefty document. It's almost 500 pages, but it gives you a very, very good idea, and it gives you a very in-depth look as to what actually happened in the state capture report, or in the whole process. And there was a tender awarded to Rosatom, which is it's a Russian company in South Africa. We're not geared for nuclear power. Another
disaster waiting for a place to happen, Robert. An absolute disaster. Yes, we're not. But the tenders have been awarded. The contracts have been signed.
Well, luckily for us, the Western Cape High Court overturned the tender, saying that there were 10 irregularities. And also, if you look in dollar value, it's $110 million. It's 110 billion dollars. It's 1 trillion rand to build a nuclear plant, which we don't need, which we're not geared up for. And the other thing is, now where are we going to get uranium? And we found, so all uranium in South Africa would have been supplied inadvertently by the Gupta family. Any computer system in South Africa is supplied by the Gupta family under the Sahara umbrella. I mean, at some point you could sell a pencil to government without Gupta intervention. And because unfortunately the thing still is, government is still the biggest employer. It is still the biggest service provider. So everybody has to do business with government. And this is also where they were very sneaky with the Black Economic Empowerment Plan, whereas you couldn't do business with government unless you were on a certain level on the BEE scale. And to do that, you had to get into business partners. And initially, people, there were ways to circumvent it. They just employed us onto the companies. And then the government said, no, we want shareholding, stockholding needs to be given to them. Whether they pay for it, whether you give it away, doesn't matter to us. But to be a level 1 contributor, which is the preferred one, your company needs to be between 70 to 100% black owned. And we're seeing more and more people just actually giving their shares away just in an attempt to stay alive. So it's not fair. You know, economic does not make sense. It's just not fair.
Yeah,
we're rapidly getting to a point where it's such dire straits. We've been downgraded to junk status. We can't bank anymore. Bank fees are astronomically high. The rand is worth absolutely nothing. We don't have foreign investment anymore. Foreign companies are disinvesting from South Africa. We've already leave because it is not commercially viable for them to stay on the country anymore. The other thing is also with the new mining charter, you have to keep in mind that South Africa is built on two major factors, which is agriculture and mining, because we're still the world's biggest producers of platinum and gold. Now with the new mining charter, all mines have to be 30% black by the end of the next 2 years. And people are just saying, we don't want to, because all of a sudden your share price is going to drop, whatever your investment price is going to be diminished, and people will start panicking and they will sell their shares. And all of a sudden, gold will be worth nothing. Or actually, your shares in gold companies will be worth nothing. You won't be able to export it from here because there's no money to produce it anymore. The salaries they're charging, or the salaries they're demanding right now for working on a mine, it is absolutely ludicrous. It is ludicrous what is happening right now. And it's all of fixing injustices of the past But the only way to stop injustice from the past is get the government to stop stealing. It is the expenditures from, but the expenditures we're getting right now. I mean, South African Airways
Yeah.
has just been bailed out again for the third time. I think in to the tune of 12 billion rand. Where does this stop? The South African Broadcast Commission is bankrupt because of the 83% local content. Nobody wants to watch low content. We want to watch the shows from the UK. We want to watch the shows from America. We don't want to watch local stuff because it is the one little pleasure we had. We took off the one show that was the biggest money spinner in South Africa was Survivor. They took it off a local soap, for a local soap opera. And people just stopped watching and said, look, we'd rather invest in Showmax or Netflix or something. And they took a hammering, and they also have to be bailed out now. So it is bad commercial decisions made at a very high level that is really draining the economy because everybody needs to be bailed out.
So now,
for what purpose? It doesn't make sense.
In response to that, Robert, but first I want to say this. In this country, we don't pay a TV license. There's no such thing. So people can't even relate to that. But in South Africa, if you have a TV, you have to pay a TV license.
Yeah, I just have to renew mine now.
Yeah, and it's the most garbage TV you could ever hope to see in your life. Because if you want to see anything worth looking at, then you have to pay for cable, which is Mnet or one of those. So now, because they bankrupt again for however many times, because they keep changing their management and changing the rules and changing everything. Because of that, they bankrupt again. So now they want to you must have a license for your cell phone, for your tablet, for your PC. Am I right?
Yeah. And they also want to get to a point now where every 5 years you have to retake your driver's license.
Yes.
You're not going to renew it. You're going to have to retake the test.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you $40 a pop to do it every single time, every 5 years. But to what extent?
Yeah.
What is it that you wish to achieve by doing this? You're not making the roads safer.
Because the taxi drivers don't have licenses mostly.
And the vehicles also aren't roadworthy. The other thing that they want to do now is
before we go on, explain to people what a South African taxi is. It's not a yellow cab like people think it is. Explain a South African taxi, because I can't without breaking down laughing.
Well, a South African taxi is actually a minibus taxi, or what they know in the US as a multiple-person vehicle or multi-person vehicle. It can take up to a maximum of 18 people. However, we've seen up to 28 people in one single taxi. They overtake on the yellow line. They go through red lights. The road just belongs to them. They just don't care. And we've even had situations, and I kid you not, you can actually go and read up about it. There has been reports on it. In an effort to get more passengers in, they remove the steering wheel and add a shifting spanner or a vice grip, and they steer with a vice grip because they've removed the steering wheel. And honest to God, while the road fatalities in South Africa aren't higher, or in the urban areas, I honestly, I can't tell you. I could see Mel as having a very good chuckle at this as well.
But you see, Robert, these are things that we like to talk about on this show because it makes South Africa real for people. We talk about taxis and taxi drivers, and the world is thinking yellow cabs. What's the problem? They don't realize that these are stolen vehicles. Like you say, they have a monkey wrench for a steering wheel. They're tied together with wire and chewing gum. They load in as many people, including chickens and goats and who knows what, as they possibly can. And show us how you call it. Please, I can't do those hard things. The way you stop a taxi in South Africa is you don't go to the
For example, if you want...
you do your little side uptown or downtown or Soweto or however it goes. and the taxi will go across 6
Well,
lanes of traffic and come to a screeching halt in front of you and pack you in with 27 other people. It is the most amazing damn thing you've ever seen. I mean, really, people just do not understand the South African way of life. Sorry, Robert. But, we need to explain these things because to us it's everyday life, but to the rest of the world, they've got no idea.
No, definitely not. No, for example, if I live in the Greater Fourways area, so if I want to go to Rand, and you have to travel to, I've used a taxi once, or my vehicle for service. We didn't have Uber yet. I couldn't get somebody to give me a lift, so I had to take taxis. So I had to travel to Randburg first, which is this sign. You have to show this. I'm going to take you to Randburg. And then to get to Sandton, which I couldn't understand because Sandton is just here. But now I need to go to Randburg, and then from there take to Sandton. And then to get to Sandton, you have to show that. Back, you have to show this. And it's absolutely a disaster. And you're driving in this taxi, and you're just praying. Look, if you're not a Christian, this is the most religious experience you will ever have. No, I swear I've never prayed as much in my life like I did those 2 days when I had to take a taxi to get from point A to point B. Because you'll have them driving next to construction sites where there's a sheer drop on your left. And I mean, it's a deep hole because they're putting up a new high-rise there. And they're absolutely driving on the line. And you're thinking, God, am I going to meet you today? Because there's no way we will survive this fall. And the police do absolutely nothing about them. They are so corrupt. They just take bribes left, right, and center. For reckless driving. Even from drunk drivers, they take bribes. I mean, on Saturday, I spoke to a lady who was caught drunk driving, and she said, I can't be arrested due to the fact that I need to leave for the US in a couple of weeks on holiday. And I said, well, how much do you want to spend? And I said, well, how much do you want? I said, well, how much is your bank account? And she had to drive to the local garage to an ATM to draw her whole salary to give to this policeman, just so she wouldn't be arrested. So rule of law really is, it's actually not even rule of law. It's like it's a suggestion. If you want to follow the rules, do. If you don't, well, just pay for it.
Yeah, I've had them too stop you and say, but I'm hungry. So if you buy me a KFC, then we'll let you go on your way. Whether you've done anything wrong or not is totally beside the point. I'm hungry, so you stop and give me lunch. It's the most, it's unbelievable, and we can sit here and laugh about it because outside of it, it's very funny. But those taxi drivers have an enormous mafia business going. They engage in gun wars with each other, turf wars where they shoot each other. I was caught in a taxi war one day going into work, and this shot whistled right through my driver's passenger side window, right past my nose and out the other window. As you say, a religious experience, you have no idea how religious you could get in that moment. I mean, if I'd have been sitting at one different angle, I would have been dead right there. So these things, although a lot of it is hilariously funny, it is extremely dangerous because they protect their turf and they don't care who they have to kill to get in the way of it.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that also many of them are involved in the drug trade because they're mules, because most of the stuff we get in comes via Nigeria. So if it's cocaine, it comes via Colombia or Brazil to Nigeria, and from Nigeria to here. And if it's heroin or any of the really, really nasty stuff, it will come in via Afghanistan into Nigeria. And so Nigeria is the central distribution hub. And the Nigerians are actually in charge of mostly in charge of the taxi trade, they're in charge of the drug trade, prostitution, child prostitution, slavery, all of that. Mostly it's Nigerian, but the taxis are the conduits, and they're the vehicles to transport or to distribute. And like I said, they law unto themselves.
Yeah, one must also understand that in South Africa, public transport, there is no such thing. Buses, no. Commuter trains, yes. But in general, there is no public transport. So these taxis, hundreds of thousands of them, hit the roads every morning, and they have a specific route that they travel, and obviously the quicker they can get to the end of the route, the more money they're going to make that day. And I believe that the drivers are paid per route they do, not per time or per passenger. They're paid by how many times they do their route that day. So they are in one hell of a rush to get that route completed. And the traffic rules that they break, destroy, it's absolutely amazing. But when they decide to cause chaos, they just close off highways, close off complete areas, park their taxis everywhere, and bring the place to a standstill.
Yes, exactly. What we've seen now is, and this is more the meter taxis, not the minibus taxis. Once Uber was launched in South Africa, it became a runaway success because your vehicle is safe, your drivers are trained, your drivers are they're courteous, they drive within the parameters of the law, and it's not that expensive. And all of a sudden, the meter taxi people started murdering Uber drivers in all-out warfare, even in Sandton, which is the pearl of South African commerce and the pearl of the African continent's commerce. We saw violence happening in Sandton, where these taxi drivers were shooting Uber drivers. Now, the thing what I like about Uber is it has very much an entrepreneurial spirit attached to it, because they are encouraging people. The amount of hours you drive, you determine your own salary. You determine how much you're going to earn this month. And if you get good ratings, you're going to get more money from it. If you do this, you're going to get more money from it. So these people are really hungry for business, because you determine your own salary at the end of the day. And now these people are unhappy about it. But I've used a meter taxi as well, and it's still unsafe because they charge almost 5, 6, 7 times as much as an Uber. And and they actually wanted government to step in to ban Uber. And I'm thinking, that is probably one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard, because we already have already have a job crisis in South Africa. Uber has given you an opportunity to be self-employed and to earn your own money. And all of a sudden you want government to step in to kill a project. It just doesn't make sense. And honest to God, this welfare state or this nanny state thing, which these people so hell-bent on, who is paying the bill at the end of the day? I mean, 95% of all taxes are paid by 5% of the population, and those 5% did not vote for the ANC at all. So at what point do we, as the taxpayer, at what point do we get to have a say? Because we don't. We can't. It's all bloody majority rule.
And Robert, how many then? What, I don't have it at my fingertips. What percentage are on welfare? It's huge.
7% of people in South Africa on welfare, on public welfare.
How many percent? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
It's 40. I think it's 47%.
47%. So when do we come to the point where the takers are way too big for the makers, and it all comes crashing down? There doesn't seem to be any understanding of there is no such thing as free money. It has to come from somewhere.
Well, we can't produce it anymore. We're loaning money from the International Monetary Fund. We're loaning money from China. We're loaning money from the BRICS countries. The BRICS countries are Brazil, Russia, India, China. We're loaning money from them to pay welfare. And I mean, the only way to actually create jobs is is to incentivize people to actually work, to cut welfare, and to to encourage private ownership or entrepreneurship, just to get people out there to do it. And we do see a lot of it. I mean, I don't know if you know about Maids on Call. Maids on Call was two black ladies who were domestic workers and said, well, why don't we get a couple of people over, because nobody can afford a domestic anymore on a full-time basis. So as and when needed, we'll have a domestic available for you. And I've used them, and I mean, it's $30 a day, which is nothing. And as and when you need them, they come along and they just they come and clean your place for $30, and they leave. And when you need them again, you just phone them. So if you need them 5 times a week, you phone them 5 times a week. If you need them once a week or once every 2 days, then you just phone them. And these two black ladies actually made an extremely successful business. Many of them have opened mobile car washes, whereas you go into a parking lot at a place like Monte Casino or Sandton City, you'll see these black ladies sitting over there with their cleaning supplies, and they'll wash your car whilst you do your shopping or whilst you're in a meeting, and they do a very good job of it. I mean, and I've got no problem in paying them because they do an extremely good job, and there's a level of entrepreneurship you can see in it, and I applaud it. But at what point, because they are also sick and tired, they're also fed up because they are also taxed, and at what point do you get there? It's like, we can't support the masses anymore. We are absolutely fed up. We can't do it anymore. And unfortunately, you can't go into a tax revolt because then everybody's a criminal. We're really caught between the devil and the deep blue sea.
The other thing, recently they're giving every unemployed person a salary. So
it's called,
who's going to carry that one?
Well, UIF is already bankrupt. You pay towards UIF every single month when you're taxed, and should you be unemployed,
the unemployment insurance fund.
Yeah. So for 6 months you can draw UIF, but it's something like, it's less than 10% of what you earned, or something like 10% of what you earn. So if you earn $3,000 a month, you'll get $300. So it's at least something, and it's at least something you pay tax for. But I mean, if we look at squatter camps and the disparity between the two, black squatter camps and white squatter camps, those white squatters, if they're lucky, and I mean lucky, they live on a dollar per family, and a dollar, 5 or 6 people in a shack or in a dwelling. How do you feed people on $1 a day? That's a loaf of bread. If it's a day-old loaf of bread, there's no substance in it. There is nothing you can do that is actually healthy. There's no protein you can put in there because it's just too expensive. And even if you could afford, like for example, a can of beans, how do you feed 4 or 5 people off 1 can of beans? So I'm really shocked by the things that are happening right now. It's absolutely disgusting. I drove up to Munseyville about a month ago to have a look, and it's absolutely filthy. It is absolutely disgusting what it looks like. And I mean, this is from the black and the white squatter camp. Yeah. It is vile.
Yeah, I know. And yet we've raised so much money to put in floors, to put in a few more taps, to put in a school, etc., etc. But what I think, Robert, is if you're newly unemployed, you still have some pride in yourself, and you still have some pride in who you are, because so much of who you are is tied up in what you do for a living. The mere fact that you are doing something gives you pride in yourself. Now, if you've been unemployed and living in your car on the side of the road in one of those shacks for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you have no pride left, no hope left, no nothing. You just become, in your own mind, nobody and nothing. And I don't know how, whenever raises those people up to a decent level again, because they have sunken so low in their own self-esteem. You don't know how you fix it, ever.
Well, the one thing is you have to create private industry. You have to recreate it, or you have to encourage it. You know, a company I used to work for actually they had a marvelous project on that. I worked for and what they did was, we realized, but we're moving more towards a mechanized we're moving towards more mechanized environment where everything is mechanized, and we're removing the workforce from the from the manufacturing process. So what they did was they went out and they created what they call a quick mix bag, which has your sand, stone, cement, everything already in one bag. And they got people from the community in to bag them, and you get paid per bag. So you don't have to worry about if the mix is right or anything. These people are bagging the products, and they get paid per complete product instead of working per hour. And you could see that the people were hungry for the business, because they would bag and bag and bag, and you get paid for every complete bag instead of per hour. Whereas these people initially started off with, no, we have to do this per hour. And it's like, well, then we can't do the project. And once we convinced them that you also create your own salary by doing this per every completed bag, and it was a roaring success. It was absolutely a runaway success, and we employed a whole community by doing that. And I don't know if the product is still on the market, or because there's been a massive reshuffle in the company itself, and many of the products were discontinued. But that was one instance where we could get to a point where now we can employ a whole sector of people, or a whole community of people. The other thing is, people need to develop skills, and unfortunately we're getting to a point where the military used to be an exceptionally good point of departure for skills development. You could become a mechanic, you could become a truck driver, you could become an airplane mechanic, you could become a maintenance person, you could even become an electrician or a plumber through the military. And well, all of those skills are being lost because we don't have the money to do it anymore. We need to get to a point where we shouldn't be giving the people fish. We should give them the tools to be able to fish for themselves. The question is, how do we get there? And which industries do we involve? What would be the government involvement in it? Because they obviously have to have a say in it, unfortunately. But how do you get to that point? You know, everybody's got an idea, but we need private industries, not government. And we need government to stop interfering with these initiatives to actually lift these people up. Unfortunately, and this is also one thing which the government has done actually very, very well. Our occupational health and safety system is probably second best in the world. The only country better in the world with occupational health and safety is Australia. But we have the lowest work-related incidents in the world. So I must give, that is actually a feather in the cap for government, whereas they made the work environment incredibly safe in South Africa. So you need an OHS policy in place, because especially if you're going to employ people on a mass scale. But still, private industry is going to be the savior, not government. And we can't keep taxing people to the point where we can't go on anymore.
But there we come back to the expropriation of land. If they can take your land, your business, your commercial, your warehouse, your whatever with no compensation, why bother to even set up such a thing? And I'm kind of getting the feeling out of South Africa that is the feeling, the overall, why bother? It's kind of a hopeless thing. Whatever I do, the government's going to take it away, or it is going to be taken away from me by one way or another. And so why do it?
Well, from a personal perspective, I set up a very small safari business a while ago. and I involved a disabled American veteran by the name of Harry Shaw to be my American partner. And basically what it came down to is most hunters in America, or most outdoorsmen in America, they do have some money, but they don't have $50,000 to come to Africa to spend on a safari. We would just give you an African experience with non-endangered species in a on normal plains game at a very reasonable price. And people were initially very interested. And so we took the concept out into the market, and the safari outfits here were very, very keen on it, because look, the industry is being killed off with the high prices. So if we can negotiate a much lower price for these people, but get the volumes in, that will be fine. Because, like I said, non-endangered species. We're not hunting exotic stuff, nothing that's an endangered stuff. All of it's plains game. And then this new white paper came in for the appropriation of white-owned farmlands. And all of a sudden, every single one of these safari outfits backed out. And we were asking why. I said, well, we won't be able to honor your client's contracts in 6 months or a year from now. We don't know when this is going to happen, but we know it's coming. We won't be able to honor your client's contracts, and we will be sued at the end of the day. And unfortunately, I had to understand that. What we're seeing now is that people are selling off their farmlands for anywhere between 60 to 70% of its market value. Unfortunately, that creates a massive problem with the receiver of revenue, because the Receiver of Revenue Act says you cannot alienate fixed property for less than what the market worth is. So if your farm is worth, for example, $1 million, and you're trying to sell it off for $600,000, they're going to stop you. But why are you selling it off for less than market value? Because all of a sudden now you're cheating us. And so these people are really, really struggling, and they get people in to devaluate their property for them now quickly. I said, no, the farm's only worth so much. And so, well, okay, now we can sell. But unfortunately, people can't sell these farms because foreigners can't own these properties anymore. And this used to be properties that which foreigners would come in to buy. For example, the Italians had a lot of farmland out here, and some Americans did as well, and so did the Germans. And none of them are interested anymore because they're not allowed to own the property anymore. So how do you sell it? Who do you sell it to? And these people, they're struggling, and they're really panicking.
Yeah. As I understand it, there are 20,000 farms on the market. Now, that is an absolute economic disaster, and famine is about to hit if those farms are left either to stand idle because they cannot be sold, the farmers are murdered, which is also a possibility, or they just stop farming at a commercial rate because it's non-viable anymore. All of those three things lead to starvation, which is where Zimbabwe is right now. I mean, you've seen the little pictures of the rat sellers on the side of the road, etc. So how is it that a semi-rural people who are the blacks, who have all their lives tilled their little piece of land to grow their millies, corn and beans and whatever for their families, how is it that they do not realize that with the exit of the farmers, the whole country is going to starve to death?
We saw that for the first time after the war, or after South Africa's involvement ended in Angola, and suddenly, well, we could trade with Angola, and people actually went into places like Luanda, which was, look, there was still a civil war running between UNITA and the MPLA, but you could go to Luanda to actually trade, and you saw pictures of shops open, but there was nothing on the shelf.
Yeah.
Not even a can of baked beans. Yeah. And we said, well, the people asked them, well, why is your shop open? So I need to trade. With what? Where's your aid coming? It's like, we don't have any farmers anymore. So, well, it's basically if we need to get fishing rods, and we just go down to the coast and we fish whatever we can find, and this is what we eat. I mean, there wasn't even game left in Angola, because Either it fled to Zaire, which is now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo, or it went into Zambia. But there was nothing left.
Yeah, I totally get that. And, you know, Robert, that is what totally scares me. Because
the initial stages of what it appears to be a famine zone. We're importing maize, uses it, but now all of a sudden we have to import it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary. It really is scary. And
No,
there's worse to come. Because, as I say, what did they say? We have about 30,000 commercial farmers left. And of those, 20,000 farms on the market. Meanwhile, the population is growing by leaps and bounds with these people fleeing from North Africa coming down. There's Zimbabwe, Mozambicans, there's just Nigerians, there's everything living there illegally. So now what? We have more people to feed, and we're going to make sure we have no farms left to feed them. The mentality is totally beyond me. So in the middle of all of this, we're now going to pass a law that we can just take your farm away. So now this is where I want to lead into the farms that were taken away, supposedly with compensation, and what happened to them.
Well, this is probably the biggest farming disaster we had, or the biggest appropriation disaster we had, was with a farm called Zebedela. Zebedela produced export quality citrus fruits, and I mean everywhere you went in Europe and the US, you would find citrus fruit that was produced at Zebedela. These families came in and said, no, look, we actually have a claim to these farms due to ancestral lands and whatnot. And so they cut off 2,000 hectares. Now, 2,000 hectares is roughly about 5,000 acres. And of prime orange producing farmland. So the first year they were there, when the first crops arrived, they plucked them and ate them. And when winter came, they cut down the trees and burnt them as firewood. And 2 years later, they were starving. They were dying on that farm, which was supposed to be a multi-million-dollar producing farm. They were starving. They cut down the orange trees to make firewood. At what point do you give farmland to people who don't know how to run it? Because they're subsistence farmers. They're not commercial farmers. In 2 years, that farm didn't produce a cent. Instead, it took government to come back in to rescue that farm. There was another guy he had a vineyard which they took over, and he was more than willing to hand it over to them at the price they wanted, except when they moved in, nobody knew how to work the vineyard, and a fungus grew on the grapes, and so the whole crop was lost. And so now you can't produce wine, and so this farmer simply bought his property from these people at something like less than 10% of the value, simply moved back in. If you do want to do that, and Namibia had the perfect model for it. If you do want farmland, you go to the land bank and you get a loan. But before you take possession of that farm, you need to prove to the government you actually know how to farm, you have been a farmer, or you were involved in farming, you know how to work cattle, you know how to work with parasites, because remember, Namibia's got very little crops. Yeah. All of its livestock. You need to know parasites, how to deal with parasites. You need to have, especially foot and mouth disease or anthrax, any of those. So before you get any land as a previously disadvantaged individual, you need to prove you can actually farm. And then when the new president came in, Karin, he's actually got a doctorate in economics. And he said, I'm sorry, there is nobody getting preferential treatment regarding farms. So black, white, all of you are Namibians, so everybody's getting an equal bite at the apple. And he simply stopped it. And it's like, well, if you want land, go buy it.
Well, I know at one stage they were demanding that even if they took your farm away from you, you had to stay behind and train the new guys, the new owners. I know that was spoken about, but I don't see that such a law was ever passed. I mean, that's adding insult to injury.
Yes, that happened because of the Bedela.
Yeah, yeah. But now, Sapiko tea estates. Now, I come from Zanin. My family have a farm in Zanin. So Zebedila is right there. I know the place. And the Sapiko tea estates in Machubas Kloof, I know them. I used to go and have tea there at that restaurant and look out over the tea estates. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful, because Machubas Kloof is beautiful. But now I see today that it was handed over and it is barren desert. There is nothing happening there. So this enormous tea estate, which was making, I don't know how much money, but tons of it, is now just barren ground. So where is the benefit to the country in any of this?
There isn't a benefit because they're all short-sighted. You need to realize that many of these people still work on tribal lines. Yeah. You know, this tribe lived there, this tribe lived there, and this was their way of life way back then. None of them actually got educated. And it's not like the opportunities aren't there to get educated. It's just they don't want to be educated. They want it for free because they saw people prospering there. Now suddenly we know what to do and we want to do it. But there's no accountability. There's no financial accountability. You need to pay salaries. You need to make sure that your crops are protected. You need to take out insurance on your crops. You need to make sure that there's adequate water or irrigation. And none of them do it, you know, because like, but how are we going to do this now? And you just see these farms going down one after the other. One of the farms that was appropriated in the Free State, they actually removed the corrugated iron from the roof of the house, set up a shack next to the house, and chase the cattle into the house because that is now a makeshift corral. Honest to God,
I know.
I can only shake my head in unbelief.
There are no words. There are no words. I mean, Robert, I've seen the before and after pictures of a farm, and the farmhouse has been taken apart brick by brick to make shacks because they could fit more people into shacks if than into the farmhouse complete. So the entire place was taken apart, like that school that disappeared in a week. It was taken apart brick by brick. The police station near Germiston, that was the funniest one I've ever heard. It was a brand new police station. It was fenced in and under armed police guard. Well, the day they came to open the police station, the place was non-existent. The cabinets, the toilets, the counters, everything. It was an outside shell that was left. Inside had disappeared. The ceilings, everything was gone. And it was under armed police guard. It's not really funny, but damn, man. You know, what can you do except sit and laugh? Because it was for the benefit of the community. We had this fancy new police station instead of this old rundown one. And they came with great pomp and ceremony to cut the ribbon and unlock the door. And there was nothing. Man, I'm sorry. I can't help it. You know, you can only look at these things and laugh. What else are you going to do?
Well, I could tell you this, but when I moved to Joburg in 2004, after I graduated from university, I was walking. I lived in Melville first, which Melville used to be a very prominent area, but now all of it. I actually drove past the police station, and I kid you not, I'll try and take a photograph when next I go there. On the wall next to the police station, on the police station wall, under the sign that says police. It says these promises are protected by ADT security.
Yes.
The police's premises are protected by private security.
I know. I read that report recently that they're employing private security because they cannot defend themselves at night. I was like, okay, so what on earth are we paying you for? I mean, we've been saying for years that the police are useless, but we have to employ private security to protect us. There are no words for this. You know, if we were writing a comedy movie, nobody would even believe half the stuff that we're doing because you can't invent it. You cannot invent it. Just look at South Africa and you'll find it. It's amazing. Honestly, it's amazing. And now we have to pay them higher salaries. Never mind pay the ADTs to protect them. We have to give them increases because they're on a go slow at the moment. The emergency number 10111, which here is 911, they're on a go slow. Now, I don't know in South Africa in civil service, if you went any slower, you'd be in reverse. But they're on a go slow. And Home Affairs is on a go slow. Which is where you get your passports and all your paperwork. So I have no words for the disaster that has an economic impact on everything. I mean, we're sitting laughing, but we have to pay the police, increase their salaries, pay them not to go slow, hire Cubans to come and do the mechanical work on the defense forces for the motor vehicles. And as you just said, they were total wreck anyway. So why we hired the Cubans and brought them in, I'm not sure. But anyway, we have this. And they all want higher and higher and higher salaries for doing less and less and less. Have you seen the pictures of the police sleeping on their desks, under their desks? I mean, and then they're on a go slow after that. How much slower can you go than that? I don't know, but anyway. So we have to pay them more and more and more, which has to come from somewhere. And as you say, how many percent people are taxpayers? 9%, 10%, 47% on government grants. There has to come a point where this is just unsustainable. So where is this headed?
We're way past the point of being unsustainable. We're heading the same road as a country like Uganda or Ethiopia. At least Ethiopia still produces coffee.
Yeah.
But if you've ever driven up into Africa, I mean, it's all in shambles. There is no functioning government really anywhere north of Southern Africa because it's all subsistence living. You know, the only thing you live off is if you live next to a lake or next to the coast, whatever fish you've caught, which you can flog to the tourists, that is what you live off. Otherwise, you just sit there to fund. You know, at some point, the world is going to run out of money to try and save Africa. And unfortunately, the continent is lost. The continent is not going to recover from this. There is no way. You know, my brother said it to me the other day. Said the biggest mistake we ever made was coming to this continent. We don't belong here, or we don't belong here anymore.
Yeah, you know, hindsight is great. If 400 years ago we could have seen what's happening today, we may not have landed there and opened a refreshment station. But the point is we did. We did our very, very best to build a civilized, financially viable, prosperous, cosmopolitan, vibrant, beautiful, beautiful country. Both us and Zimbabwe, and you can throw Namibia in there as well.
And Botswana.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. I don't think there is anywhere in the world that can rival those countries put together. And we did everything we could to make them financially viable, which they were. I mean, they were prosperous, the bread baskets of Africa. We fed the entire rest of Africa from us. And now we're standing there with our little tin cups out and are begging for aid. It's a disgrace. And yet it's monopoly white capital's fault. While you sit in a parliament built by whites, designed by whites, the chairs done by whites, your clothes designed by whites, your watch from whites, your car from whites, the road you drove on from whites. And you tell us that we are wrong for everything we've ever done. I don't understand it, because they don't want us, but they want the benefits of us.
Well, you can easily refute white monopoly capital if you go and look at what I call little Switzerland. Go to Botswana. It is the most prosperous country on the face of the African continent. And it's run by a guy by the name of Dr. Ian Khama.
Yeah.
He's a soul. He was educated at Sandhurst Military Academy. And I have utmost respect for the man. He is absolutely brilliant. His country's prosperous. The people are happy. It's safe. There's no racial tension in that country whatsoever, simply because it just don't tolerate it. And it goes to show you that if you apply your mind, they can do whatever they want. Ian Khama is the shining example.
Yeah.
Haki Kainkop from Namibia, same thing. The man is educated. He's smart. He's a capitalist, and he's taken that country and turned it around. And absolutely taken it from where they actually want to de-link from the South African rand, which means their monetary value is going to go up. Which means, and the Namibian economy is in actual fact stronger than ours, because they don't have the same nonsense like we do.
But it's starting. From everything I'm reading, it's starting there. So, it's going without a very, very strong hand at the helm. It's going to go the same way, because I've read, I grew up in Namibia. I went to school there in Windhoek. I was Southwest swimming champion. I was a swimming team leader. So it's got a big place in my heart, because once you've lived in Namibia, there's never another place for you. It just kind of burns its way. And as the national anthem says, it burns its way into your heart, and you just a desert baby for the rest of your days, So yes, I love Namibia, and I keep a close eye on it. And it seemed extremely peaceful with, as you say, no racial tensions, whatever. But unfortunately, the same as the rest of Southern Africa, it's starting there. They are talking about taking farms away from whites. They're talking about land expropriation. It's a very scary thing, and I do believe that if South Africa finally falls, Namibia is going to follow close behind, because they are surrounded by black national countries, and they won't be able to stand against the pressure.
Yeah, well, if Namibia's problem started after the EFF went and opened a chapter in Windhoek.
Yeah.
That's where the problem started. Now, the EFF, and what scares me about them, and this is a little lesson we take from history, and I'm going to take you back, well, just over 40 years, to a little thing called the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia under the leader of Pol Pot. Pol Pot was a gum tree farmer. He was a gum tree farmer. And he started the Khmer Rouge. Now, Khmer Rouge in French is something to do with red. And it started as a grassroots level movement, and it just grew and grew and grew. And eventually it took over Cambodia, renamed it to Kampuchea, and in the span of 4 years killed 2 million people.
Yeah.
And we are watching the same thing happening with Julius Malema, and people are not seeing him as a threat. I'm seeing it as the next Khmer Rouge.
Yeah.
And people are laughing, but it's a very, very viable threat, and I'm scared. I'm going to be very honest with you. I am scared.
I have been saying since when he was expelled from the ANC, I took a deep sigh of relief, and I thought, okay, that's the end of this little man. And he came back stronger than ever. Stronger than ever. I mean, within 1 year of the EFF, he had seats in Parliament. And look at what he causes there. I mean, we can, one more time, we can show those videos of them in their red jumpsuits and their hard hats in Parliament creating chaos. And we can laugh, because it is externally very funny, but it is not. And because of the economic chaos in South Africa, he has got an incredibly large base of unemployed, unemployable, helpless and hopeless young black people who see him as what they could become if they could get one toenail onto that gravy train. And so he is a hero to them. And I am scared too. I'm very glad to find a like-minded person, because everybody wants to dismiss Malema. I think he is the most dangerous young man in South Africa today.
Keep in mind that this is a man that tells everybody he's a man of the people, except he's got a house in Sandton. He drives a Range and a Mercedes AMG. So, man of the people. Sell a Range Rover. Get yourself a house in
his watch is worth more than you and I will ever earn in our lives, you know. But as an example to these dispossessed blacks, he's a wonderful example of what can happen if you just on the winning team. And they have seen the Zuma family and the Zuma connections, getting rich, having Nkandla, having all these other things. And they see this man as their path to that. I don't think they see that by the time Zuma leaves, there'll be nothing left of the gravy train. In fact, they'll have burnt it at the station, you know. I just don't see, they don't see that. So it's a very scary thing. And yes, you're right to be damn scared of this man.
The thing that scares me about the Zuma exit is the vacuum he's going to leave.
Yeah.
And it's, how's it saying, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Now also keep in mind, Pol Pot did not come to power within a very short space of time. It took him a couple of years to infect the people, infect their minds, and eventually this whole armed insurrection. And who are the people that he killed? He killed the educated. He killed the people that were actually getting into any form of opposition to him. I would not put it past him, and I've been calling him that for years. And even when he exited the ANC Youth League, I knew this guy was going to cause trouble. He is the next Pol Pot in the making. He's the African Pol Pot. Never mind Hitler. Hitler doesn't scare me as much as this guy. Because what he's calling for and what he's actually willing to do and encouraging people to actually break the law to go and do whatever you want, it concerns me. It is, I'm telling you now, I am scared. I am really scared because I don't know what the future holds for us in this country. I don't know if something were to pop off, where do we end up? Because we're already disenfranchised, you know, and now we're surrounded by more disenfranchised people. Now you need to keep, these people are disenfranchised because government keeps lying to them. Whenever there's a new crisis, it's like, yeah, but it was the whites. It was apartheid. We're 27 years after. Keep in mind, apartheid didn't end in 1994. It ended in 1990 when Mandela was freed from prison. It's 27 years after the fact.
But it was during the 80s, it was already being dismantled, Robert.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't
at what point
that it was being dismantled. So yes, as you say, at what point? At what point?
At what point do you stop blaming us for this epic mess that they've inherited, or we're now inheriting in ourselves? At what point do you stop believing the president when he says, no, but it's the white man's fault. It's white monopoly capital's fault. At what point do you take personal responsibility? At what point is there accountability from government to say, this is what's happened. We made a hash of it. We need to start over. Let's hit the reset button or something. I mean, I don't know if you read when Zuma, one of the Zumas was Minister of Health, and they actually appointed a commission of inquiry to find out why is there this massive AIDS pandemic in South Africa. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you why there's an AIDS pandemic in South Africa. You know, stop sleeping around, stop using filthy needles. And it came back, the reporter said, well, it's apartheid's fault that there's an AIDS pandemic in Africa. Where do you, out of which tree did you fall to make such a statement? Did somebody drop you on your head, or did somebody drop something on your head?
Yeah.
You know what causes AIDS. You know how it's spread. Teach the people not to screw around. Then there won't be as much AIDS in the world or in South Africa. But no, it's apartheid's fault because they never taught the people about it.
Well,
AIDS
Robert,
only came in the late 80s.
under Mbeki, it wasn't Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma who was the Minister of Health, and they came to the States to some huge big HIV/AIDS conference, and everybody was there with their pamphlets and their pills and their scientific stuff, and there was the South African little plunky table there, and we had garlic and beetroot, and I forget what the third thing was. These were what you had to do. Probably a shower head, because you know what I'm referring to there. But again, so it was garlic and beetroot. That if you eat these, you won't get AIDS, no problem. And then they came to the conclusion, well, maybe it had something to do with sex. So what they did was they had this countrywide campaign, and they sent out condoms to every address in South Africa. But what did they do? They stapled the condom to the letter and told people that
I remember that.
Do you remember that? So now you must use these.
I was
I mean, honestly. So we finally come to the conclusion that just maybe sex has something to do with this. So we'll send you these holy condoms and you can protect yourself. I mean, honestly, even when they come to the right conclusion and try and do the right thing, it turns into a total damn disaster. I can't believe the stuff that goes on. So now it's back. It's a white construct. It's not real. Oy.
And actually, President Mbeki said that there's no scientific evidence to link HIV to AIDS.
Yes, absolutely.
But you're not a medical doctor. How do you get to this conclusion? Because all the experts are telling you it is directly linked to, the two are directly linked to one another. It's like, well, no, it's not.
But then so we come further down the road and we have accepted that there is such a thing, and it might just be a white construct, but nevertheless, we do have this thing. So then our beloved President Zuma says, yes, he did sleep with this girl who's got HIV, who's HIV positive, but don't worry, he showered in the morning, so now he's absolutely healthy. Do you remember that? And it was a huge big front page newspaper article because I showered in the morning, so don't worry, my beloved people, I'm safe. What? I mean, really? Yeah, so what hope is there if the most fundamental things are so totally misunderstood? And I suppose it's a white construct, like corruption is a Western paradigm, so it doesn't apply to Africans. I'm assuming that this is the same thing. It doesn't apply to Africans, therefore. I don't know. I don't know what to say. It becomes so ridiculous. And yet that damn same ridiculous stuff is affecting millions of lives and destroying them in the process.
Yes, exactly.
What is the answer? Is there an answer? I mean, I'm laughing at it. Yes, because it is laughable. It is damn idiotic. But the effect of that is so damaging that entire generations to come are going to be hurt and damaged by this. If you look at the little white kids in the camps who are not getting an education such as it is in South Africa right now, but they're not getting an education. They are not getting decent food. They are subject to cognitive disorders because they're just not getting the right food for their ages. that damage, how many generations is it going to take to recover from that? How many? And why are we not stepping in and fixing it now? Oh.
Karin, I'm going to be very honest with you. We're too late. We're 20 years too late. But, you know, and I do in some sense blame the arrogance and the stoicism of us as South Africans, because we believe that by writing a few nasty letters, people will just change their minds, or just ignoring the problem will change their minds. We should have reached out to the international community 23 years ago when we saw this coming. Yet, however, we thought it was an African problem that's supposed to be solved domestically. Apartheid was brought to its knees because of international sanctions.
Yes.
Have a look. Ask anybody outside. Do you know of the racial segregation laws in South Africa? And they'll tell you about apartheid. And say, but do you know about the current one? And they'll say, because there isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
We are 23 years too late.
But Robert, had we said anything then, we would have been apartheid lovers. We would have been trying to return to apartheid. We would have been bigoted. We would have been racist. We haven't given it a chance. The world had only just lifted sanctions. They would have slapped them on us again so damn fast our head would spin. Nobody would have listened had we spoken out then. And South Africans believe in government. They believe that they're there with your best interests at heart. After all, we voted you in. You must have my best interests at heart. They are law-abiding people. They do what the government tells them to do. So they didn't have the mindset to stand up and shout. Because, let me tell you, if the blacks think they were oppressed under apartheid, what about the white dissidents? Nobody ever speaks about that. But if you spoke out against apartheid, you were in dire danger of being disappeared. They had a law that they could take you away for, 360 days? They could disappear you without any consequences. So nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about how the whites suffered equally under that rule because you dared not speak out. And yet all of us now are painted with that brush. Every one of us.
Well, we also need to keep in mind, and this comes back to 1938, when South Africa, as part of the Union, joined the war. And I know my grandfather went to war, but it was against the wishes of what was then known as the Oxwagon Sentinels, or what we in Afrikaans.
Yeah. Don't speak to Mel about stuff like that. She'll go off like a firecracker.
And my family couldn't benefit from any of the stuff from under the national government because we were known as the red tie people, because we went to war with the union. And so even under apartheid, we couldn't get the high government jobs. We couldn't get the high profile jobs with the banks or the big corporates because we were anti-nationalists, because we've been capitalists. So we couldn't get those big government jobs or any of those. So we've always had to do our own thing. So now we're being punished a second time for the nationalist government.
Yes.
You just can't win. You can't win.
No, but the point is, Robert, what you said earlier, and it's still sitting like a dagger in my heart, is when it hits the fan, what happens to us? And that has been my question for the last 15 years. When it hits the fan, what happens to the supposed 4.5 million whites? I do not believe that figure for 1 second because of all the people that have left, the murders or whatever. I do not believe it. But in any case, what happens to that incredibly outnumbered, endangered minority? By the time we wake up and say, where did the white South Africans go? It's too late to help them. So what do we do?
Well, I can tell you this much because I live in the urban environment. I live in Johannesburg. I will most likely not survive the first night.
Yeah.
We're completely surrounded, so I will definitely not survive the first night.
Mm.
You know, within hours, I will be dead or severely disfigured or disabled, whatever, simply because of the proximity to everything. To do everything, and keep in mind, and this is, I don't know if you remember the Rwandan genocide in the mid-90s.
Mm.
It took them a couple of weeks to kill 800,000 people. That was a
Mm.
couple of weeks.
Mm. Well, I don't know if you saw the plans for Uhuru. Just prior to Nelson Mandela dying, these were floating around quite freely publicly. And it was a very realistic plan. And I think that was when they said that his funeral would be the sign for it. And there were taxis riding all over town with Uhuru not now, bumper stickers on, etc. Now, I think that was when I first began to take this 6-7 years ago extremely seriously, because once I read that plan that was floating around everywhere, I realized how easy it would be to just in 48 hours literally clean up the whites. They would be stragglers, but in general we would be done away with. Now, I don't want to try cry doom and gloom, but the plan is drawn up, it's there. So, and as you just said, you don't think you'd make the first 48 hours. So what do we do? Because you have nowhere to go. And now we've spoken to the International Criminal Courts. We have been to the United Nations. We have been to the unrepresented nations. We have been to the European Parliament. We've sent a delegation to Poland. We sent one to Hungary. We've been to Uruguay, asking them, please, please, please give these people rights of refuge. And nobody wants to. They listen and pretend sympathy, but then it disappears. So what more can we do to ensure that the South African culture, language, religion endures? Because it deserves to.
Honestly, I can't answer that question. I don't know what else can be done. It's rhetorical. I don't think there is anything that can be done anymore. It's we're outnumbered, we're outgunned.
No. I refuse to accept that nothing can be done. Then I am sitting here, divorcing myself from my family, my home, my life, on a wasted endeavor. I don't believe it, Robert. I refuse to believe it. Then all of us sitting here today are blowing hot air. And that was a polite way of saying it. And it's not unicorn dust either. I do not believe it.
I just want to jump in here quickly. Robert, earlier you said something very interesting about how your brother said that the worst thing we ever did was come to Africa. Well, I must just say that I'm so proud to be South African. I mean, being raised in Afrikaner, I don't sound very Afrikaans, but my heritage goes back to the Huguenots, and I am so proud for the 23 years that I had the opportunity to grow up in Africa and experience the childhood that I had, and even to go through, even if it was an illusory period of time, the Rainbow Nation. There was a time where I went from being conditioned to thinking that blacks were different and separate to us, to being in a place of total transformation where we embrace them as equals. And that has stayed with me my whole life, through everything that I've done, through the travels that I've been on, learning to accept and be tolerant of that which is different to us and not fear it. And I can't stress anymore just how grateful I am to have been cultured, programmed, I've had these experiences. So, again, maybe it was a mistake, but man, I'm grateful that I was there, and I've gone through this. And I'm just utterly, because of how proud I am, I'm just utterly devastated that they're trying to destroy this really unique Western adaptation that the white people have to Africa. It's not even a West. We're not even Westerners anymore.
No.
A unique adaptation. We are a culture. We are white Africans. You know, we have a unique adaptation to Africa. And when we are taken out of Africa and put back into Europe, and I've been living in London and Holland and now in Portugal for almost 20 years, can I just tell you that the Africanness never leaves you. You don't then become European again. You just don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
I've been out of Namibia now for 27 years, and I'm telling you, there's always that burning to go back, because it is home. You know, it is something unique to my character. It is something unique that I grew up with. It is something unique that is part of me. You know, it doesn't matter where I end up in the world. You know, I will always be Southwest African, because it is my identity. It is my cultural and heritage identity. Karin, I think the issue at hand is how to convince external governments to actually consider taking in refugees, and that is why I've been toying around with the idea of the term economic refugee. Now, keep in mind that a refugee is always a drain on your economy, and now to get to a point where it's like, look, we're going to take in, let's take a conservative number, let's say 400,000 people as refugees. You need to have an economic plan in place to accommodate them. I've toyed around with the idea, and I've come up with a three-part plan, which is one for youngsters, one for the older people, and one for the elderly. But all of them will have an economic participation or have economic process in participation. All of them will be self-sustaining economies, and at the end of the day, won't be. It will form a part of a. It'll look like a shareholders agreement between the government and the refugees, obviously with their own leadership elements in place. So, which would mean acquiring land, acquiring certain implements, acquiring certain infrastructure, which will then, as per the shareholders agreement, then obviously be repaid back to government at an agreed interest rate. The thing is to get skills for the youngsters. Now, from what I understand, Mike Rowe, I think is his name.
Yeah. We lost you again. We've lost you, Robert. I don't know whether you're speaking about Mike Rowe, the guy.
He's quite an authority on blue collar something. Now, all those skills are lost in South Africa. There's 5 million jobs that can acquire those skills. Now, all of a sudden, like, but now you're not a drain on the economy. You are actually added benefit. Or you could get these people into the military and saying, look, for the next 4 years, you are paying your way into the country. You are going to do skills in either artisan or in the medical fields. It's something that is marketable, that you can take to the marketplace after you leave the military. And your 4 years in the military is going to pay for that. So then there is no social contract. Then this is a contract between you and the government and the military. And then you actually legitimately paid your way in. The other thing, what you need to realize is that about 20 years ago, the US was still the biggest producer of motor vehicles in the world, which has now been surpassed by Japan. And the thing is, you can directly link all of that back to the demise of Detroit. And I do believe that with effort and with some careful planning, you can actually resurrect Detroit. You can resurrect Motor City. You know, get the people back there and get those skills back. And Detroit had 11 million people. It now has less than 750,000 people. The city is laid to waste. You've got infrastructure, you've got everything to put these people in, and you have an industry which they can work in, and then again resurrect the whole system. Now, these are just thoughts that I've been toying with and been throwing going around, and obviously I'm fine tuning. So you need to keep in mind that there's elderly people, but you can always do that with what they call hospitality services or food producing. You know, let's say chicken farming, for example. It is not land intensive. You can produce a lot on a little, and also out of that you create 4 different industries. You get the protein, which is the meat, the organic fertilizer, which is the guano. Then you've got the preparing of it, and you've got the distribution. So 4 industries are made out of one single place. So which means you employ 4 single people on 1 chicken. And out of the distribution is still, out of them they branch into 2, which is obviously the reselling of the chicken and the guano, or organic fertilizer, I think is the correct term these days. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. You just need to think a little outside of the box.
Yes, and if you look at what President Trump is doing right now, he is very, very much for blue-collar work, the trades, not university skills, Bachelor of Arts, you know, where really he's into the blue-collar workers. That is what we need to stress for our children today. So I do believe that plan would tie in very much, because he's bringing industries back to the States. He's bringing companies back to the States. We need the people with those blue collar skills. And those people are generally the aspiring middle class, the incredibly hard workers, etc. So it could tie into what he's trying to do, but it's going to take time, because that poor man is facing so much opposition that I don't think he can think South Africa right now. I mean, that he's able to think outside of the White House is a huge shock to my system, because honestly, the opposition he's got is never before seen in this world, as far as I can see. So although we are on many fronts trying to reach President Trump and present the white South African to him as a benefit to this country, I don't think he's able to even consider that right now. He has so many internal problems. But we also know that we have to do it fast. So we are working on many fronts to try and do that. But as I say, we have people working on Poland and Hungary as well. I find that a problem because of the language difference, the culture difference, etc. You know, you would find it easier and quicker to settle in the United States, where we all speak the same language. We have the same religion, more or less. I think it would be easier if we could just get the ear of somebody who would be sympathetic to our cause. And I'm thinking his wife or daughter would be the best people to go via, you know.
The other thing that I also thought about is to integrate them into smaller communities. You know, I'm not talking about a small community with 5,000 or 6,000 people. I'm talking with something like 30,000 or 40,000 people. You know, it'll be a gradual integration into the society. So it'll be much easier to integrate them into society rather than a place like Los Angeles or Houston or something like that. Or put them on the outskirts of it, and then it's a gradual integration, which means it'll work out seamlessly, because they have to communicate, because they have to integrate, because they have to deal with these people. You're still a stranger in a strange land.
Always.
It will be a gradual integration. It will be a smooth integration. And as far as I know, I can't see any hiccups. But the thing is, you need to get the skills, and you need to impress on the president that these will not be simply refugee seekers, which you need to take care of in any case. These will be self-sustaining economies or self-sustaining communities within a community. They will be delivering services. They will be delivering specialist skills or artisan skills. And that's why I was hammering on the military earlier. If you keep in mind that the American military is less than 1% of the American population. Now bolster those numbers with a couple of military-aged males that are willing to go. You don't put them in the teeth arms, you put them in support arms. You train them to be aircraft mechanics, you train them to be mechanics, you train them to be truck drivers, you train them to be plumbers, electricians, artisans, something. So after the time, or the 5 years or the 4 years in the military is done, they've got a marketable skill to take out into the marketplace. They're not an economic liability whatsoever. They're just taxpayers. Now they're simply taxpayers that are eligible for naturalization, or they can elect to go somewhere else. The choice will be up to them, but they will have the election of naturalization after their time in the military. The list is really endless. I've just touched on a couple of ideas that I've had, but the thing is, it doesn't need to be that you're looking after refugees. You're looking after people that are economic drain. The reason why they're not taking 116,000 Somalis because the Somalis aren't working. The same with the Somalis. They're not working. They are a drain on the economy. We want to impress them, but we are not the same. That's why I want to steer away from refugee. It's an economic refugee. It is something or someone that can add benefit to your economy. That is quiet. That is not really in the mood for insurrection or any form of rebellion. These are just people that we just want to work and we just want to live. That's all. We just want to pay our taxes and we just don't want to be messed with. That's it.
So my comment on that is why what Leah is doing on the farm is so very important, because she is taking people out of the camps, giving them a home for a year where they are reskilled into things like welding, metalwork, for which there's a market in South Africa. You know, the market for burglar bars and security gates, etc., is enormous. So she's skilling them in those things, at the same time putting the kids into school, making sure they're fed, they're healthy, etc., etc. After a year, they then are helped to form their own business or get into an already existing business, but they are then being funneled back into society. If we could put together bigger, where we could have more people involved, things like what Leah is doing, we would then be able to present to any government in the world, okay, we've reskilled these people, they're ready to go. Not you need to teach them the skill. We've done that. We've kept them healthy. Yeah. We've kept them educated. We've given them self-esteem. They're ready to go. So with your idea, Lee's dovetails into that so perfectly. The only thing is she can only do 10 families a year. And that's not enough turnover to make a big enough impact, you know. But at least, look, this alone is costing millions of rand. So she's doing a wonderful, wonderful job. But as I say, just not big enough. We need more, more finance, more input, more people in South Africa willing to do this so that we can skill them quicker. And as I said, then you can present the entire package to some government and say, okay, here they are, you know. Yes. But right now, we don't have that much to offer except dispossessed people who have no money.
Yes, exactly.
You know.
Well, I think with some fine-tuning, you will be able to convince somebody, you know, but the main thing is you need to get to a point whereas people are not an economic drain, because remember, people are not just, they don't just have to be clothed and fed and housed. Medical expenses are incurred. Medical expenses incredibly expensive. Yeah. Now to get to a point where it's like these people have their own medical insurance, which they paid for themselves. You know, you take the economic burden from government or from your local authority and place it back onto the community. It's like, guys, if you want to live and you want to eat and you actually want to do anything, it is up to you to make this. We've skilled you. Now you have to go out and make it for yourselves. You know, and people, when faced with the odds of living in a foreign country, not knowing where you are or what you're going to do, with a culture that might be a little different, people are going to work their backsides off. Yeah. You know, just
in gratitude for being safe. Because Nala and I have both said, much as our hearts cry for South Africa, much as we are homesick, the feeling of safety, of not being in danger, of not being under threat every second of every day, kind of makes up for that homesickness.
Yes.
And I do believe that South Africans
Yes.
will be able to breathe freely getting out of that country. And they will work themselves to death in order to repay the goodness of somebody helping them to get out. Now, I have got 2 farmers here in the States who offered to house 10 families each. But we can't get them visas because these people don't have an address. They don't have a bank account. They don't have family. They don't have money. They don't have anything. So I can't get them visas to come here. All they have to do is come. They'll have a home, furnished, the use of a car. They'll work on farms. Everything's in place for them. And I have to tell these kind Americans, thank you, but I can't provide people for you. I just can't do it because we can't get them visas. It's heartbreaking for me and for the people who want to help so badly. It's heartbreaking for them. So I've just been informed we have about 10 minutes left. For wide-ranging comments on the economy, we've gone many, many different routes. Yeah. Do you have anything that you would like to say before we wind up?
Well, I think we've covered everything, but the main thing is I would like people to really actually know what legislation says in South Africa and how it's prejudiced against us. And I mean, we're largely excluded from participation in the economy. It got to a point where there are legal jobs out there, but I can't get them because I'm white. I had to open my own consultancy, and it's hard. And I'm really struggling right now because I'm a sole proprietor. I've got some clients, but unfortunately, due to the extent of the tender work they're doing, I can't get it because I don't have a BEE a compliance certificate because I can't get one. So I'm scrounging for clients everywhere, and yes, some of them come in, but it's not nearly enough. And you know, at what point do we say enough? You know, because we're excluded from economic participation. You know, I'm with a struggling business right now, or my own little struggling business right now. Hopefully things turn around somewhere along the line. But I want the world to know that the same apartheid laws that were applied to them are now being applied to us.
And more of them.
And we are struggling. We are dying here. We're being slaughtered. You know, not only physically but economically, we are being slaughtered in this country. We do not have the spending power anymore. It has been taken from us, you know, and we've been forced from middle income or middle class to simply return to a lower income if you have income.
I am so sorry because we have the hardest working, best educated, most creative minded people that you could ever hope to meet in this world. And yet, look where we are today. Those same people are being thrown, what you would say in Russia, into Siberia, because that's literally where you're being put. You are put in the Siberia and left there to rot. And it is terribly unfair, terribly sad, but we will change it. People like this show, like the people we are involved with, we will change it or die trying, Robert. And that is my word to you. Bella and I are not about to give up, lie over and turn over and play dead. We will fight this damn battle until we get somebody to make a difference. And then we'll fight it again because we will always be looking for people to help. But right now, this is my battle and I'm not stopping.
Well, if you need my help on anything, let me know.
Robert, thank you so very, very much for giving up your time tonight unexpectedly, unwantedly, I'm quite sure. But thank you very, very much.
Yes, indeed, Robert. Thank you ever so much. You've been an absolutely delightful guest, and trust me, when we need someone to come in from the legal side, we will be getting in touch with you. You absolutely have our word that we are not giving up, and this is something. It's a cause that's so deep in my heart. On so many levels, and we honestly are just so proud of the many people in South Africa who are kind of waking up to the truth of what's really going on and not buying into the official story, the media bullshit. And it actually comes from those people who are suffering the hardest, who kind of have to work it out, to understand why they're not surviving. So it's always great to talk to people who've got their heads switched on, and we appreciate your input today.
You're absolutely welcome. It was a pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on your show.
Most welcome. Robert, do you have a website or anywhere that people can contact you?
It's on www.visionlegalservices.co.za.
Okay. So visionlegalservices.co.za. All right, we've got that. Thank you. And Karin, please just your site again is?
radiofreesouthafrica.com, and I just want to announce, and you're the first ones to hear it is on the show, my radio show will be back on the air in 2 weeks' time. I will be airing on Tuesday nights. So 2 shows for me, 2 2-hour shows every Tuesday. But I will be back on air on resolutionradio.com.
Lovely. Wonderful, Karin. Great that you're back on air, and the media work that you do. We know that you're very, very stretched, and you're making a huge effort for everybody in South Africa. So, CCN's always proud to be working with you and have you co-hosting the show, because there's very few people out there who completely get it quite the way you do. So, it's an honor and a privilege. Thank you, as always, for being a gracious co-host and such a knowledgeable person. And please, guys, do check out Stop South African Genocide and Conscious Consumer Network's archive website, which is ccn.media, to find all of our shows and, of course, to catch up on what's going on in South Africa. Because you know what? I always say this. This is not just about South Africa. This is a battle for the whole planet, because South Africa has always been a testing ground. What's going on in South Africa is unfolding in other countries. You can see it happening in America. You can see it happening here in Europe, where we are seeing the phases of what we saw 20 years in South Africa unfolding in the rest of the world. So people need to watch out, look at the patterns, understand how this is all unfolding and how it will eventually affect just about everybody.
Exactly.
All right, guys, that's it for us tonight. I think we've had a great show, and we'll be back with you next week. Until then, take care.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.